Hello and welcome. In this episode, we are going to be discussing on some two interesting stories, starting with this huge one as it is now official. Barcelona, after the assembly that took place yesterday, the very important assembly, Barca have finally approved the sale of 49% of Barca licensing and merchandising, abbreviated BLM. 300 million euros boost is expected. We are going to be discussing on that as we move ahead. Then, secondly, talking about this other report, of course, saying how Barcelona officials have explained how the club can bring in extra revenue amid crisis. We're also going to be discussing on that. So, guys, before we get right into it, please do ensure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you're just coming across this channel for the very first time, you're very welcome. Give the video a like and also make sure to watch the video right up to the very end. With the club in dire need of funds in order to cut back the massive losses and properly strengthen the squad ahead of next season, Barcelona are expected to rely on sponsorship deals and player sales to generate the much needed revenue this summer. Barca have already completed a sponsorship deal with Spotify. They were further given the opportunity to sign another lucrative deal with CVC Capital, but the club have appeared reluctant in penning the contract. It has forced Joan Laporta to search for alternative ways of generating revenue. One of the proposed methods is the sale of BLM, Barca licensing and merchandising. The board has devised a way to potentially generate 300 million euros by selling 49% of BLM to interested parties, but the motion needed to be voted before the last chunk of the shares can be auctioned off to potential suitors. In an assembly vote conducted yesterday, Thursday evening, the Barcelona board members have authorized the sale of BLM, with a large majority of the members of voting in favor of the sale. 568 people in total have voted in favor of the motion, whereas 65 of them have voted against the sale. There were 13 blank votes. The overwhelming majority means FC Barcelona are now authorized to sanction the sale of 49.9% of BLM in an attempt to boost the club's economy. Barcelona have recently received an offer of around 200 million euros plus 75 million euros in add-on for BLM, but the offer was rejected by Joan Laporta, who is holding out for better offers from other interested parties across the world. The successful sale of BLM could go a long way in helping Barca balance the books and receive a much-needed financial boost in their pursuit of top targets such as Robert Lewandowski, Rafinha, and Cesar Azpilicueta, among many others. So finally, it has been agreed, it has been voted. I think this is great news for us, as this will enable Barca to get along with the deals that they want to, to facilitate. And it's a day to celebrate. We know we are in a deep financial mess right now, and we got no choice. I think Laporta had no choice than to take this decision to hold the assembly so that it can be voted before being approved, and that's what have been done. So let's see how it goes. But now Barca are expecting a huge boost, at least 300 million or more, that will enable us to facilitate transfers, much needed transfer targets that we have been talking about a lot, that without this deal, it is very much doubtful if Barca will get along with those transfer targets. But now one can be sure, one can be certain that Barca can go ahead to sign some of those players that we have been linked with, So I think it's something to really, really, really celebrate. That's just what we need. Then also we need to sell some players. Of course, player sales will be very necessary, because before even any player comes, it has been reported that there are fringe players that must leave to balance the wage books. So let's see how it goes. Finally, majority have won the vote. Very few, just 65 of them, according to what we heard, just 65 of them voted against the sale of the BLM. And that was so insignificant. There were very few. So there was a huge percentage, hundreds of them, that vote in favor of this sale. which will go a long way to help Barcelona financially. Of course, all this we know is a short-term financial solution to our problems. It's not like it will be there forever because, as they say, desperate times calls for desperate measures. And that is what Laporta and his board are trying to do, which will go a long way to help Barcelona a lot in their financial stability. Then on to the next story of discussion. During the extraordinary assembly of FC Barcelona, delegate members on Thursday, June 16, club president Joan Laporta and marketing vice president Yuli Gulu shed light on several financial decisions that the board has planned in order to put everything in perspective. The agenda of the assembly was to get approval for two main issues. First, being the authorization for the acquisition by one or more investors of a minority stake in the social capital of the business in parcel licensing and merchandising, abbreviated BLM. The second was about the authorization of the cession of one or more investors for up to 25% of income for the exploitation of the corresponding television rights. We are deciding major issues that affect the present and the future of our club, said Laporta in the assembly. He continued by saying the assembly is held with the aim of approving solutions that would help improve the club's economy, which is the key to everything. When we arrived, we found ourselves in a very complicated economic situation. We couldn't pay the payroll for the month of May. Investors demanded the payment of 200 million euros that we didn't have. We were terminally ill, and today we will talk about Barca being the F1 single-seater, one that we find ourselves without gasoline and with a seized engine. Today, we can announce that if the assembly members give us their trust and we activate the economic levers, Barca will once again have its own funds and you will be able to repay the debt in a more sustainable way and have a more competitive team. If we activate these levers, the car would already be taken for the pit to do a setup and put it on starting grid to compete, he explained. BLM is something that, I think that is entirely owned by Barcelona. And now that things are going back to normal, I think the team is expecting an estimated revenue of 55 million euros out of this season. In order to generate extra revenue, however, Barcelona are in need to find more partners to expand it internationally. And for that, they need the authorization to sell 49.9% of its equity. Going by Laporta's words again, he said, this operation will first bring an investment because they will buy 49.9%. We have different proposals. The valuation of the whole company has been made at 700 million euros by us. There are investors who consider that the valuation, is lower. It will be a stretch between 600 million euros and 700 million euros. There is a push and pull. It will help us accelerate growth. The offer we are considering are not for less than 200 million euros. Roughly, it is between 200 million euros and 300 million euros for this 49.9% based on the series of clauses where Barca would have to authorize the sale of a third party. There are negotiations that say that 49.9% would be over 200 million or 300 million euros. And some business plans say that within 6 years, BLM could enter 1.2 billion. We do not have a crystal ball, although we have some projections, he added. Laporta also assured that the sale of these assets will have a repurchase option so that if a new board arrives, they can exercise it in case of an emergency. He continued by saying, it would be unfair. It is not your fault that the club has been poorly managed in recent years. That is why we will not ask you for a spill. The TV rights will return because it's a certain period. The other from BLM, there are repurchase options. Explain the precedent. We need instruments to compete with our rivals. This will help us to have positive funds and be healthy, repay the debt in a more reasonable way. We will be able to reinforce our professional teams so that they are more competitive. I ask that you vote in favor of the authorization, he concluded. So guys, with that, we have come to an end of this episode. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, bye for now.